Okay. Again, thank you all for joining the special meeting that we're having today. Um, Here's our agenda. We'll do a little welcome. We'll give affordable housing updates, talk about the updates around the deeply affordable lots, and then have a working group conversation where we have, just time to have a discussion around the deeply affordable lots, and then just review the next steps and what's coming in the future. So first, could you all please put your name and your connection to Woodlawn in the chat? This just helps us keep track of who's present in the meeting. So I'll give you all a minute to start doing that.
So, Aaron, someone is waiting to get into the chat. Justin?
Yeah, I just accepted them in.
Okay, great.
Okay. Thanks. All right, let's see that people are putting their information in the chat. Okay, I'm going to just go over our working group norms and expectations. These were what we agreed upon when we first started meeting in March or April of this year. So, expectations is to attend implementation planning sessions. That was what we did, through August of this year, and communicate if you cannot attend. Remember, we do want to keep this group consistent. People who, helped create the drafted ordinance and this seeing the implementation. So we do want to keep the groups consistent. And then the established norms that we agreed upon was come with an open mind, assume good intentions, be mindful of your contributions. So speak up if you haven't spoken in a while, or let others speak if you have spoken, numerous times. And I think a good rule of thumb is, counting 3 people if you're a person who speaks frequently, waiting for 3 people to speak before you do. And the last one is be present. So I think it's just important for us to, since we haven't met in a while, to remember the norms and expectations that we agreed upon in March. Also, as a reminder, before we get into this, actually, I think I'm going to stop and allow the commissioner to introduce herself and just have some opening words.
Oh, thanks, Aaron. Hi, everyone. Good to be with you this evening with my colleagues, Aaron Johnson from Department of Housing, Patrick, Lisa, and Justin from Department of Planning, and all of you. So this is a, as Aaron said, a special meeting of the working group, which I think was scheduled actually to meet again in February. Was that the next per the kind of regularity agreement, but we did get a request from certain members of the working group to talk about the issue of the deeply affordable lots, and so we wanted to bring the whole group back together to talk about that. So look forward to the discussion. We also have a lot of great updates to share just about progress that has been made on the ordinance and in the community, so we look forward to that as well. Thanks, Aaron.
Thank you. So I'm going to share just a reminder of what the goals of the housing policy is: to create new and for sale housing opportunities that are affordable to households at a range of incomes, ensure that existing housing stock offers good quality housing for residents, promote housing options to support equitable and inclusive income diversity in Woodlawn, and support economic development opportunities. So these are the policy goals that are stated, first in the ordinance, the ones that we as a group have been working toward, and the goals that we keep at the heart of our work at the Department of Housing and Department of Planning here. So next, I was going to provide an update on what has happened since we've last met. So as I mentioned in our reporting meeting, the Woodlawn Loan Fund was launched in the spring of 2021. We already closed on one property, which will offer 9 to 12 units, and half of those units will be affordable to families at the 80% area median income. Park Station's loft has been approved, and moving forward, it's 58 total units with 41 affordable units, 9 units at the 30%, 9 units at 50% AMI, 23 at 60%, and construction is slated to start in Q1 2022. And the commissioner will talk more about this development, but this is following the deeply affordable lots requirement. We have the long-term homeowner improvement grants, which outreach has already started, and I know that members of this working group have been great at getting the word out to their neighbors and to other community members about this application coming. I know that I've had conversations with several Woodlawn neighbors about this program and making sure people are getting their documents ready so that on January 3rd, they can, submit their applications for this program. Just a reminder, this is a up to $20,000 grant program for homeowners who've lived in the community for at least 5 years. Our C lots for working families request for application, that's affordable homeownership development. That we're looking to launch that application for developers to start developing in Q1 of 2022. In our latest announcement of affordable housing programs, the near $1 billion investment into affordable housing that the city is doing is Island Terrace, which is preservation when city and state support of a 21-story, 250 high-rise unit from 1 to 3 bedrooms for preserving affordable housing in Woodlawn. And then the Chicago Community Land Trust has acquired a 2-flat property for affordable preservation, which will be priced affordable to families at the 80% area median income. So I wanted to let you all just know what we've been doing since we've last met and where programs are, and that again we are deeply committed to preserving affordable housing for a wide variety of income levels and work in the Woodlawn area. So to remind us about what we're talking about today, though, are the deeply affordable lots. So we had 2 meetings about these during the summer of this, and just a reminder, what the ordinance has is that that all lots in the Woodlawn, all city-owned lots in Woodlawn have affordability restrictions, and then there are 52 that the ordinance calls out that have been lots that would need to have a deeper level of affordability. So that is for people who are at incomes at 50% of the area median income or below. So 15% of the total units created on these lots will need to be at incomes between 30% and 50% area median income, and 15% will be the rents would be priced at affordable levels for households with incomes below 30% area median income. So that's again what we're talking about, is this set aside for city-owned land that has a deeper level of affordability tied to it. So when we had a conversation in the summer, we had 3 priorities that we kind of jointly agreed upon. One, which was the maximization of the affordable unit creation. So that's operating with what is feasible for these types of developments and what the zoning allows, but maximizing the amounts of units that can be created and holding in these other priorities. I'm looking for lots that can be developed quickly and easily. So how can we leverage our funding and leverage options that we're getting affordable units, that is possible, and that we're not just having spaces that aren't getting developed. And then identifying, spaces that are making sure that people are close to amenities such as transportation and other neighborhood assets, which these are issues and areas that, if you looked at our Department of Housing's recent announcements are also priorities that we've held close to, is, making sure that people have access to transportation, access to work, and other options as well. So here is just a map of city-owned lots throughout the community. We have these shaded areas, which kind of show areas that are zoned for low density. What we've seen for this level of affordability, that these are typically larger units. So, I mean, developments 25 units or more. So, you know, there's also just looking at where in the neighborhood this would be feasible. I'm gonna pass it to Patrick from DPD, who can share us a little bit about like the DPD's perspective of this work.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Patrick Brutus. I am a Southeast Region Project Manager, Planner. I'm joined this evening by my lead planner, who manages our team, Lisa Washington, and my colleague, Justin Peterson, who is new to our team. And we're all happy to be here. As you know, the Southeast region includes a number of Southside communities, including Woodlawn, Washington Park, South Shore. During the time that we have been in between these working group meetings, we have joined with our sister department, the housing department, on a couple of field trips into this community to take a deep dive of some of the actions and activities that are ongoing in Woodlawn. And we have conducted a tour. We've seen some of the stock of housing that exists, the new housing that's under construction, and recent developments. And suffice to say, we in planning are equally interested in making sure that we are doing our best to enforce the goals of the ordinance, as well as to create as much affordable housing as possible in this rapidly gentrifying community. So, we want to make sure that the mayor's vision for creating affordable development in our city that's equitable is also achieved here in this community. So, we're here to answer some questions and obviously working with our partners at housing, but we are, equally interested and have been following and, doing the work to see the activities on the ground in this community. Just as of note, just a side note, we're doing some activities on the 67th Street commercial corridor west of Cottage, between King and Cottage, where we have seen a successful proposal, the Salam Wellness Center. We're working with another small business operator also along that corridor. So we're trying to see some things happen and be an agent for change in this community as well. So again, we're more than happy to answer some questions later on after the presentation. But we stand with our partners in housing to really make sure that the affordability of this neighborhood is preserved.
Thank you, Patrick. So next, I'm going to pass it over to Commissioner Navarro, who can share a little bit of the history of the development of this part of the ordinance, and share a little about Park Station and how we see this happening in reality and getting these units created at this level of affordability.
Sure. Thanks, Aaron, and thanks, everyone. If you could go back just to the map slide, and we'll come to Park Station in a moment. Thanks. Okay, so I just wanted to go back a little bit in time because, yes, Wendy, that is the DL3 project, Park Station Loft. So we'll come back to Park Station in a moment. I wanted to go back in time a bit on the conversations that we had leading up to the creation of the Woodlawn Housing Preservation Ordinance, because not everyone who's in this group was in those conversations. In some cases, leadership of different groups has changed, or there's just different folks that are part of this conversation now. So I wanted to go back to that and just reframe and revisit. So Section 3C of the Woodlawn Housing Preservation Ordinance notes that 52 lots, which is 25% of the total city-owned lots that the city has in Woodlawn, are reserved for development of housing for low and very low income households. So Aaron went through this It says that, we need a certain percentage of units within anything that's built, and those spaces will be at 30% of the area median income and 50% of the area median income, and that is in place for 20 years, and that at least 10 of those 52 lots must be at the highest density that's allowed in Woodlawn, which is B23, but for normal people terms, it would mean like what you see on the major thoroughfares, like along 63rd Street, along Cottage Grove, etc. And so what that means in reality is a couple things. Basically, to reach that level of affordability, 30% of the area median income and 50% requires a subsidy, because to be affordable at that level, you've got to write down the rents or whatever the form of housing is through a subsidy. And the reality is that we have city-owned lots that are in residential blocks that are very low density, that are single-family homes or two flats. And that's not where we're going to see generally that level of affordability, because a single-family home or two flat is where we would likely see home ownership efforts. And as we talked about a lot in the working group, we don't see home ownership as a viable option for folks at those income levels. And we don't really do rental housing development as a single family home or a two flat. It's not something that we subsidize the construction of. So largely where we're talking then are on the main arterials. In this map, it would be the dark blue that's labeled high density city owned parcel, because that's where we can actually get to that level of affordability. And generally that is achieved through low income housing tax credits. And in the city, that's you can either get, developers are awarded those credits either from the city or the state. The thing that's true, though, is that neither the city nor the state predetermines at which addresses they will fund affordable rental developments. They are awarded through a competitive process. And for the city, we do it every 2 years. The state does it every year. And essentially people apply and say, here's our plan for XYZ place. As Aaron mentioned, this year, one of the applicants in our round was to preserve Island Terrace, which was something we were very excited to be able to do. So sometimes it's new construction on a vacant lot, sometimes it's preservation of an existing building. And we, if you're coming through our evaluation or our round of tax credits, then we evaluate that and we make decisions about which developments we can fund, and the state does the same thing. So the challenge that we have, because there's a request from some in the group to pre-identify which lots will be those. The challenge is that that's not the same thing as identifying a funding source for them or securing funding or guaranteeing funding. And so the reason that we wanted to talk about Park Station Lofts, which you can jump to that slide, Aaron, thank you, is that this is an example of how this we see this working in action. So there's a development team here. It's a partnership with Leon Walker from DL3 Development that applied in our last funding round, actually in 2019. And they proposed to do a mixed income development in Woodlawn. And so we worked with them, the Department of Housing and the Department of Planning, and the Alderwoman Taylor's office worked with them extensively so that it met the goals of the community. So the first thing was that the Department of Planning suggested Actually, we have a lot that's much closer to the Green Line. Why don't we look at doing this project there where it could be a transit-oriented development and so on. So that was one change that was made. Then we sat down, Department of Housing and Alderwoman Taylor's office, and we discussed with them this this part of the ordinance. And we said, so given that this is a goal in the ordinance and that we want to make come to life here in the neighborhood, let's see how we can get this development to meet that goal. And so it does. And they changed their original proposal around so that it's 58 total units. 41 of them are affordable. 9 of them are at 30% of the area median income. 9 are at 50% of the area median income per the ordinance. 23 of the units are at 60% of the area median income, and then 17 are market rate, and there's 3 commercial storefronts with affordable rents. So that unit configuration and the whole project went through multiple meetings with Alderwoman Taylor and the group that she convenes to review these types of opportunities. And so we've already, you know, it's actually a very large lot that it happens to only have 1 pin. So it's, you know, we've now met one of the 52 lots requirement of meeting that goal. And so that's how we intend to make this come to life. And I think, you know, to the degree that there's interest in that in securing this level of affordability, it would be great to work with more developers to develop proposals that can meet that and come into funding rounds so that we can actually evaluate them for funding. And so the state, as I mentioned, the state has a round that where they evaluate proposals every year. The city will have another one in 2 years. So we just did one in 2021 where we selected Island Terrace. We'll do another one in 2 years in 2023. And so, you know, I think a great kind of thing to work on between now and then would be what other development teams could get prepared to make this kind of progress against that goal. And I would also just note more broadly, you know, that it goes, the preservation ordinance goes far beyond the 52 lots that are, you know, called out in the ordinance as deeply affordable. There are actually affordability requirements for all city-owned land in Woodlawn. So that is the case as sort of a baseline. So I'll stop there, Aaron.
Thank you. Next is discussion. So, you know, discussion questions I have are, what questions do you have about, you know, this development process, land sale process when it comes to the city? And then what questions do you have for DOH or DPT around these deeply affordable lots? I'm going to actually stop sharing my screen so we can see each other. What I will ask is that we, you know, if you have a question, you know, use the raise hand feature. Oh, is that on? Or, you know, just, you know, or unmute yourself to talk. Again, remember our agreements that we had at the beginning, and just, you know, just have one voice at a time. But thank you. And then also I see that Alderwoman Taylor has joined us. So welcome to the meeting, Alderwoman Taylor.
Thank you. My apologies. I had a CIP briefing, working on streets and lights and stuff that's going on. So my apologies for being late, but I am here and listening.
Thank you. I see Naomi put something in the chat. Naomi, do you want to talk about? Oh,
yeah,
okay.
I can talk about it briefly. Yeah, we were privileged to win the Gold Award. Went to Venice, Italy, got a check for $100,000, and it's all about the work we started back in 2014 for how to build in community for community between 30% and 80% AMI, gorgeous housing, bleeding edge energy efficiency, lots of the amenities that we see across town, but it's a different financing model that we're working on. Our partner was internationally renowned architect Michael Sorkin, who died of COVID last year. The last thing he did before he entered the hospital was email us the renderings and the beginnings of those plans for that housing. We, for the lot that we own, we planted a fruit and nut orchard there in anticipation of building those 16 units on that lot. And so the money that we won will be going into pre-development, but we have some other deals that we're working on as well, and definitely would like to meet with you, Marissa or Aaron, whomever the chain of command is here, that we're just deeply committed. And of course, Alderwoman Taylor knows this, that we're going to satisfy what the community needs, or we're not even gonna ask, because the market will do what the market does. But Blacks in Green is about working to build wealth for legacy, what we call legacy residents, increase household income for folks who are already living in the neighborhood, and making sure that when you look at affordable housing that we create, you cannot tell, ooh, that's where poor people live. It's going to be gorgeous, rich, lush, and with all the amenities. It's a different kind of funding model, and we need your support.
And I think you raise a good point that, when we think about low income, we shouldn't be thinking about things that look unsightly or things of that nature, like this concern about condensing the 52 lots. The affordability that happens at these lots will be a minimum of 30%. And that's why, we've talked to folks in the community, and a lot of people are backing, and we are insisting that in order to keep and make sure affordable living can still happen in Woodlawn, that we need to have the lots that have been proposed. I just dropped a map if folks want to see this, because I know like visuals is a lot easier. They're dispersed, but they require that we get the high density lots that are on 63rd east of Cottage, because we know that these are the lots that folks are going to be eyeing for luxury.
Basically, this is Sharon Payne. I'd like to say that, we've been campaigning to make sure that what lots are going to be allotted to us for the higher density, and to say that you want to put this off for another 2 years is not something I don't see that we can do. We can actually do. These lots, we need to know what's available, what we can actually have access to, and we need to have this done now. This is not something that we put off for another couple of years down the road. I feel like I find that a bit unfair, because I didn't really know that you were taking proposals in right now.
I think what Ms. Payne is referring to is like every 2 years, the funding being available for folks to apply for. I believe what you were saying were tax credits that can be then applied to these affordable developments.
Yes, thank you, Savannah and Ms. Payne. Just to clarify, it's not that anyone's saying you specifically have to wait another 2 years, or what I'm explaining is that's how to get that level of affordability that's laid out in Section 3C of the ordinance requires a subsidy. And the way that the biggest source of subsidy that we have in this country for affordable rental housing is low-income housing tax credits. And we do that a round of funding for that every 2 years. That's just our policy for everyone. That's not a Woodlawn policy. That is what we do. And the state does their round every year. So there's what I'm not suggesting that anyone that there's not a path forward. What I'm suggesting is that the path forward would be to work with development teams to advance proposals on lots that folks are interested in that would work in those timeframes. So again, the state will have one next year. That's a good amount of time to come up with a development team and a proposal that the community can spend some time working on, and then apply for that. There's not a way to pay to make it as affordable as laid out here without that subsidy. That is the main source of subsidy that we have, and that is how the state awards them, and that's how the city awards it across the board, not specific to Woodlawn.
I want to make a comment along with Savannah, Ms. Payne. We are very pleased on the housing program. It has been finalized and rolled out, but we have to make sure that the most important displacement preventive piece isn't put on the shelf to look at later. And we need to know now which 52 lots are ours today so that we can preserve, protect, and provide sustainable, affordable housing for all.
I have a question, Marissa, quick question. So you just said that we need to have a development team. You look at you assess the acquisition of the lots based on some funding mechanism that every 2 years for I guess the city and every year for the state. So if we requested the 52 lots that that we're trying to get to, are you saying we need to have development teams established too with a proposal? Or can we just be assigned the 52 lots and then start working on the development team and the proposals for how we will build and fund on those lots?
Right, so neither the city nor the state predetermines at which addresses we will fund rental developments. The way that we make both the city and the state make decisions about low-income housing tax credit awards is through what's called the qualified allocation plan, which is issued, as you heard, every year for the state, every 2 years. And at that point, development teams, make proposals. And just as the group with the DL3 did for Park Station Lofts. And then that group went through the local process with Alderwoman Taylor's office and went through her process and in order to achieve her approval, they met the terms of the ordinance. So it does not require that a lot be predetermined for that. It is open to the development teams to say this particular corner, these particular sets of lots, we would like to put forward a proposal that meets the terms of this ordinance. And then it would go through Alderwoman Taylor's local process to ensure that, just as Park Station Lofts did, and through whatever round of assessment that group wanted to go through, whether the city or the state.
So in essence, do you reserve those lots for us? I know you can't give it to us, but what assurance do we have that those lots will be taken by some outside investors and we lose the opportunity to build? It ain't all affordable homes, right? We're only talking about 30% of the units, and 70% of these probably market rate. So it's not like completely affordable is what we're talking about, right? You need a combination of the two.
So thank you for the question. And that's why I think Park Station is really informative, because in that case, there was no, it wasn't a lot that was reserved as you have to do 30% at these levels of affordability. But because that is an agreement on, and we know that at least 10 of the 52 lots need to be at this higher density. When that proposal came forward to us and to Alderwoman Taylor, the conversation that we had with that development team was, hey, we want to talk to you about the goals of this ordinance, and that's what would, and meeting the goals of that ordinance. And that's in fact what, you know, the process for Alderwoman Taylor's support that she went through, and for our support.
Is there any way we can get can we use that as a baseline for creating the same type of proposal, the one for the Park Station lot? Is that private or is that public information? How does that work?
I mean, the unit mix is absolutely public information, and you know, is something that we can share. I can put the unit mix in the chat for sure for anyone who's interested. But that is, you know, I think that is the way that we get to this. I do think it's worth noting that at this point, to get to that level of affordability that we're talking about here, it's likely that the building is not going to be, you know, a market rate building with 30% affordability, because that's a deep level of affordability. It's likely that it's going to be a development that is receiving subsidy much more broadly than the 30%, just like Park Station Lofts is.
But doesn't the businesses that's below the multi-purpose units also include the businesses below those units, like they're doing at the Park Station, right? So that help offset some of those costs, doesn't it?
Generally speaking, what we find is that when we look at developments in communities that have had a long history of disinvestment, and where we're actually what we see as an opportunity with a multifamily rental building is that we want to build in first floor commercial. Actually, the residential units help to write down the cost of that commercial rent. And what we tend to do is allow, even though we're housing developers, we know that people need more than housing to have a quality community. And so we will help write down some of the rents of the commercial properties so that we ensure that people can get tenants in that they want, and that would serve the community and serve the needs of residents. So it's actually the other way around. The residential tends to, in those cases, tends to sort of subsidize the rent of the commercial spaces. But I want to make sure we're hearing from other folks too. Go ahead, Aaron. It sounds like that's where you were going.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. And I know that Liz has their hand up for a while. So I want to make sure that we get to Liz.
Oh, thank you. And hello, everyone. I just had a question about the lots, and I heard a lot of terms of these are our lots. Who is we and our, and who decides, you know, and I think Marissa, you answered a lot of my questions. Who actually decides where they want to develop, and are we seeking out homeowners in this affordable space as well, instead of rental?
So there's both. Okay. Zooming out in the bigger picture, the city owns, I believe it's 208 vacant lots in Woodlawn. And if we zoom out to the bigger picture of you know, what we committed to, there was, because we heard lots of opinions on this across the working group, there was definitely interest in home ownership and a range of incomes that were served. So in these kind of scattered residential infill lots that are on more of the, you know, single family home and 2-flat kind of blocks, that's where we would expect to see new construction, home ownership. And generally speaking, in those cases, we're talking about 80% of the area median income, 100%, 120%. of the area median income when we're talking about home ownership. So we would be getting, in those cases, those would still be subsidized. We would still be writing down some of the costs, but it is reaching more of a middle income in those cases. And then we also had this commitment to ensuring that we were also investing in rental housing, and that within the rental housing, that there was a commitment for deeper levels of affordability. And so that's where we're digging in here. But I don't want to ignore that, you know, part of the agreement when we talked this through as a group was that, you know, we would be looking at those residential blocks and those vacant lots on the residential blocks as likely home ownership opportunities. And as Aaron mentioned at the beginning, that our timing on that is, you know, is early next year to start work on that part. So it does overall, big picture, there's a commitment to home ownership and building, as we heard from many of you, building home ownership back in a middle class there, as well as a commitment to rental housing and to some of our lowest income folks with this commitment. And that's what you see playing out in Park Station. So it's a mix of all of that.
And,
Thank you.
And I also want to remind people that there's, for any development that happens on city-owned land, there is affordability restrictions on there. So, so the commissioner's talking about, you know, like what deeper level of subsidies we can do and how we can leverage things. But, you know, even if the city got a proposal for a city-owned lot, if it's 15 or more units, 20% of those units will be affordable. So of the total units, you know, 5% will be for people who are households that are at 50% of the area median income, and 5% will be at people at or below 30%. And the other 10% is at 80%. And then if it's 16 to 14 units, then 10% are affordable for people who are at 80% of the area median income or below. So I'm just putting out reminders that any development that happens on city-owned land, regardless if it is, you know, part of a reserved situation or deeply affordable situation or not, will have affordability, and those larger buildings will have at those deeper level of deeper lower income levels as well. It's just how we reach a larger number of those is that we know that requires subsidy. So we're trying to be intentional about the subsidy that we provide. I see that Alex has his hand up.
Thanks, Aaron. Yeah, so my understanding was back in the summer, you all put up a map with a proposal of lots that would be set aside and asked for feedback on that map. Is that correct? Did that happen?
We shared, yes, maps of like lots of what we're thinking about, and told people that it would still have to go through, you know, our processes of examining, you know, what's feasible and things like that. So
specifically for where the 52 lots would be located, right?
Yeah.
That was the map that you showed us to get feedback on, correct?
Is an exercise for feedback, yes, an exercise.
Okay, so that exercise for feedback, I'm hearing, has now been completely thrown out. New process, surprise, right? Am I hearing this right? That process has been abandoned, right? That the idea of presetting the lots, which you did tell us that was going to happen. Is that correct? That the city is now stating you no longer want to preset the lots, which in the summer you stated you did. Is that right?
I don't think that we're saying that we don't have any intention of getting these levels of affordability. It's just that we're trying to make sure that homes actually get developed. So that's the conversation we're having today.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it goes back to what Charles raised, which I think is that, you know, there's going to be a lot of other folks that have other intentions for these lots that will have proposals and financing more readily available than the developments that can result in affordable housing. And so it seems that, you're basically saying, well, it'll be up to the alderman's process, as a way to kind of pass the buck. But this is also one, like a 20-year commitment, and to me at least feels disingenuous, because it feels like if the city is committed to creating the most possible affordable housing and actually preventing the most possible displacement, then everything would be done to institutionalize this commitment so that that can be allowed to be possible. By kicking it to saying this is now the alderman's process, to me, to me, misses this opportunity that we have now to designate these lots and then put out to the world that we want developers, the best developers from all over the world, to come and build real affordable housing near the Obama Center, help preserve this community, right? I feel like we should be partnering on that. And that's not what I'm hearing.
So Alex, thank you. I'm glad you're here, because that you are the person that we talked about this most with. A couple things I guess I would address from your comments. I don't know what was said in meetings over the summer that I wasn't part of, so I don't want to speak to that. What I want to speak to is what we talked about in the past, and not what we're saying might happen, but in fact what is happening and what has happened. And it's not to say we'll now put it off on the alderwoman. That is the process. There are no other lots, as Aaron noted. There are no city lots where we don't have an expectation of affordability. So there's not going to be a private developer that comes to do a private development on city-owned land that we don't touch. That's not how that would work. And we don't have this agreement on private land because we can't. So if we are talking about city-owned land, and we're talking about land that we therefore go through this process on. The distinction that I'm making, and you and I talked about this, is when we're talking about the low density residential scale, that is not a level where we're talking about 30% and 50% area median income affordability. So we are talking about the higher density lots when we're having this conversation. And in those conversations, the process that, not that we're saying theoretically would happen, the process that is happening, this is exactly what happened with Park Station Lofts, is we had a development team that needed subsidy to complete their development. They came to us and said, we would like city-owned land. The Department of Planning worked with them on the land. We then said, hey, we have this agreement in the ordinance. And so we want to talk to you about meeting the agreement in the ordinance in your affordability scale of your units. They did that, and that project is now moving forward to closing. We do not pre-identify where either the city or the state where we will fund developments in the future. So pre-identifying lots is not the same thing as pre-identifying any funding for them. And there isn't a scenario where we would see a private developer coming for city-owned land because they're going to run into the affordability requirement no matter what. And at that point, they're going to need the subsidy. So it isn't a theoretical, this is actually how it works, and it has already worked in the instance of Park Station Lofts. And I'm looking at, I think it's, I'm looking in the chat with housing on 63rd is a plan that the city has made for Woodlawn. I think that there are, I think, and I'd like to invite folks from planning to jump in on On the major thoroughfares, there's absolutely an interest in a mix of uses. And ensuring that those thoroughfares are where we get the denser rental development, as well as the commercial development that neighborhoods want and need in terms of restaurants and businesses and other things. So I do invite, in terms of the conversation I'm seeing about, what's the plan on 63rd and so on, I do invite other folks from planning to jump in there.
I don't know, I may be jumping the gun here. I know my lead planner is here and has done more extensive work in Woodlawn, but principally speaking, the commissioner is correct. We try to cluster our development around transit nodes, as well as increase the opportunity for commercial development, but we can accomplish that as well as meet our affordability goals in mixed use projects along 63rd Street, Cottage Grove, King Drive, the main arterial streets where that zoning, current commercial zoning, C and B calls for that, allows for that. So the commissioner is absolutely correct. We can do both, meet our goals for increasing job creation through retail development, but also hit the numbers on affordability in mixed use developments.
Hi, this is Linda Tinsley. Okay. Can you hear me? Are you able to hear me? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Thank you. I live at 61st and Cottage Grove. I'm in one of POA's buildings, which is the Burnham Senior Building. I know that there are, different people in the community that probably have a little problem with more affordability, more affordable housing, especially the 30%. But I'm here to tell you, POA did an excellent job, I'm sure, as most have seen along Cottage Grove. Grove Park was up, that was taken down, and POA came in, and like I said, did an excellent job. We're looking for that same thing to happen. We need those 63, those high density lots along 63rd. Well, I said 63, I'm sorry, we need the high density lots along 63rd from Cottage Grove going back east, okay? That will give us more affordable 30% units. And considering what the range of income in Woodlawn that I know about, I would say in 2019, 2020, was like about 27,000, I think, 26,000, something like that. 30% is definitely AMI, what these people really need. Okay, and there's going to be a lot of displacement, a lot of gentrification going on. Let's be real, with the Obama Center coming up and with the PGA golf course coming through. So we've got to look out for, the less fortunate, if that's what, I don't really like that term, but people that their income is, a little bit lower. And that's what I have to say.
Thank you, Linda. I also see that Quandra has their hand up.
Yeah, I just had a quick comment. I've been in several community meetings where I hear a lot of individuals who are developers in the community. They live in Woodlawn or they live in Washington Park, and they're trying to develop within their own community. So I do agree with us developing Woodlawn, Washington Park, the surrounding area around the Obama Center. But are there any programs or any discussion that the city can have with some of these community developers, where the community can be built by the people who live within the community. Is that something that we're talking about? Is that even a possibility to be able to help these community developers build their own community? I would hate to see all these outside developers come in, build up our community, and then they're gone. The money they've made, they take with them. It's not reinvested in our community. It would be great to see if there's some type of program or how the city can work with these developers to help these community developers build within their own communities. Is that something that's been discussed? Is that something that can be discussed?
Yeah, so I could say, oh, sorry, go ahead,
No,
Commissioner.
go ahead, Aaron.
So the ordinance does have us preference neighborhood developers. So people who either live in the community or have done extensive work in the community is first who we will preference. In our earlier meetings, I believe that was in July or August, CIC presented along with Esther Sorrell, who is an assistant commissioner for the Department of Housing. CIC offers trainings, and I sent out that information and happy to send it out again. Or you can just go to their website to access the information, but trainings on how to become developers. And then Esther Sorrell, our assistant commissioner, did offer that she's happy, and their team is happy to, which is our financing team for the Department of Housing, happy to have conversations with developers, people interested in developer, to let them know about the financing resources that the city has and help walk them through some of those processes.
So where do we get that information? Because I haven't seen any developer classes for any community developers. We have organizations like CIMD, the Dearborn Realtors, and we have these organizations out here who can provide those type of services or training. So how do our community get knowledge back?
So Quandra, it's a great question, and I actually was going to bring up Dearborn Realtors Board and CEMDI and so on. Are you aware of developers within Woodlawn or near Woodlawn that that are interested in that kind of resource and just haven't been able to make the connection, or where's?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So Aaron talked about one avenue through CIC and so on. We can certainly follow up with because we work very closely with Dearborn Realtors Board and so on. So we can certainly follow up with that. What do folks think is the best way? Somebody noted, like, to do kind of a mixer where people can make those connections. And I do want to point out that, there are really different levels of involvement here. I think when we're talking about doing for sale, new construction, single family homes, that might be a very different type of developer or development team than one that knows how to deal with federal subsidies and low income housing tax credits. You might have a group of folks that are ready to do one of those and not the other, or vice versa, might need a partner on their first deal and then later may be able to do it alone. Those are all things that we would want to try to distinguish and help build up. So what do people think is the best way to make those connections in Woodlawn?
Well, I work for Sunshine Enterprises. I'll be more than happy to host something there where we can notify the community if some of these developers or organizations want to come and talk to the community and these developers, as well as the alderman's office. If we can get her some type of literature of these different courses, and then she can just disseminate that throughout the community. That's my idea.
Great, and great to know you're with Sunshine for sure. I don't know if Alderwoman Taylor has more ideas here or wants to chime in on this one, but we can certainly work with your office on that.
Yeah, I always tell the city that we're bad at advertisement. We suck at it. We have
Fair
loads of good programs and things to help people in the community. And there are only so many people who are on Facebook and Twitter. I got 20 senior buildings, they're not on that. And so postcards, whatever it is, let's work together to get the word out. But yeah, we suck at advertisement.
Okay, well, we can we can work with Courtney Jones and make sure that that information is getting through your office and with Sunshine and so on, although it sounds like you know those folks, Quandra. But we can, yeah, that's a follow-up we can do for sure.
See a hand up from Bennett.
Yes, hello, thank you. Shannon Bennett with the CBA Coalition and also with the Kenwood Oakland Community Organization. Just wanted to ask the commissioner if she could directly answer that question around, has it been taken off the table, or is it even something that you all are still open to considering, which is what we're asking tonight about the identification of the lots? That's the direct question. I'm trying to get a direct answer.
Well, I think that that's a broader question for this working group and for the alderwoman. Is there does the broader group even want to do that? I think it's worth noting a couple things, that the reality of how this is working now is that when a development comes forward, the expectation is noted that we'd like to work with you to meet the goal of the ordinance. If you designate certain high density lots for this and some that are not for this, you are essentially pointing developers where they will need to meet this goal and where they will not need to meet this goal. And the way it stands now, what we're doing is that each time you're coming to a city-owned lot, this is what, for one of the denser lots, that this is the conversation we're having. So what I would like to ask back to the broader group is, does the group see it as beneficial to point people in that direction?
Well, what I was trying to ask you before you flip it to someone else is a direct answer. And I guess I'm not going to get it, because the reason why I'm asking it like that and ask for a direct answer, because it seems like tonight we've heard folk think from the city speak to, that's not the process. That's not going to happen after we asked that question. And when Alex asked you directly, you didn't directly answer it to him and you didn't directly answer it to me. Now you're flipping it to the working group. I do appreciate that. I hear that. But I think I'm not going to get what I'm asking for right now. So I'm going to end my question here, and I got your answer. Thank you.
It's not mine to solely answer. This is a working group, and it's the alderwoman's input as well. So that's why we have a group.
But that's why I directed it to you. But thank you.
But it's not mine to answer, so it doesn't
Well,
belong
I
to
understand.
me.
I understand your talking point. Thank you, Barbara.
So I guess I'm interested from members of the group of your thoughts on that.
Well, it's Naomi. I wonder why, and it's part of what I dropped in the chat, why where there are so many CRA violations, that's Community Reinvestment Act violations, banks which have not met their legal obligation to provide financing to certain communities, why the banks who hold City of Chicago funds on deposit, financial firms that manage our funds have made billions of dollars. You know, I'm not a financial professional, so I can't say X amount by X time period, but it's easy to know, and it's well documented, the kind of profits that are being made by the banks. Now, I'm not trying to say we should end capitalism, but I am trying to say the city of Chicago has a bully pulpit, just like right now, the city is working with ComEd to renegotiate its service agreements, the rates that they're charging, the practices that they have. Everything is on the table right now in terms of what that corporate entity gets to do in the city of Chicago with the households and the purses of residents. And so why can't we, explore what a parallel step would be with the banks to say, look, I'll tell you what Yale did. Yale University said to its money managers, okay, here's who gets to play with our money. You have a certain percentage of diversity goal that you must meet or you can't handle our money. And guess what? All of a sudden, they were able to do what they kept saying they could just not do. And I just think we have so much leverage. How are we using our leverage, our negotiating power to have the banks step in? Look, that upfront equity is make or break. You're not going to do anything without it. And unless we can open up the coffers and get some money to folks in the neighborhood, if you want to build an add-on, if you want to buy the lot next door and put a building on it, you can't do anything without upfront equity. Let's focus on that, that barrier. That's the ring pass knot. That's where nobody on this call who's aspiring to be a developer is going to do anything without upfront capital. And so let's focus. Can some of us who want to contribute to a solution there get together and look at what the Office of Sustainability is doing with ComEd or other models anywhere? Those banks, $250,000 is nothing to those banks, absolutely nothing, but it's everything to a developer who needs that nut. If you have a project that can work, and the only thing that's missing is that upfront capital, that is the difference between building wealth and building poverty in our communities. And that's part of the provision that was also in the Climate and Equitable Jobs Act we just wrote. It can happen. Who wants to work on that? Who can work with me on that? Who's willing? Or is it a bad idea for some reason that I'm not aware of?
Hey, Naomi, and congrats on all the progress with the Till Mobley work that you've had this year. It's really exciting.
Thank you.
I think you're raising a point that I don't know if you followed the the lending equity ordinance that was passed earlier this year. And in conjunction with the city treasurer, there was a lot of work on trying to determine that the banks that the city does business with do a better job of investing in communities and so on. So I think there's a lot of people who agree with you and are working toward the goal that you are espousing. And that is, I think there's a lot of folks working on that and agree with you. And I'm happy to connect you with the, if you're not part of it, it's actually largely been organized by the folks at Neighborhood Housing Services who were pushing for that change in the ordinance. And
do they have a structure for providing upfront capital? Because the ability, so like having more loans available or putting more dollars in a pool of funds, and all you have to do is meet the same criteria that you always have to meet, that you can never meet, that's not a solution. And I apologize for not being familiar with the granular terms, but that's just my question is, because if you don't have the upfront money, there's nothing that you're going to do. Does it provide upfront capital?
Well, I guess I may have misunderstood your question. I thought you were talking about how should the city be doing work with banks based on their record, be a depository.
Well, yeah, no. I'm saying what I'm saying.
So that's one matter. Okay. The other matter is around, can they provide different and better and more lending products in communities that need it? And that's a different question, which we can certainly get to. I was answering a different one and I may have misunderstood you.
No, I'm only asking who's providing upfront capital and can the city use its muscle to make the banks that are depositories or financial managers put that money, make that upfront capital available, because that's That's the solution. That's one major solution, in my opinion.
Got it. Then I think that's a separate group, and that is probably where we'd want to bring in folks like Quandra and SEMD. And yes, Patrick is noting the Chicago Community Trust has pre-development money and so on. So that's I think we could tie you to the work that's going on in those spaces as well, to get at that.
Well, okay, but I'm going to stop talking because I don't want to hog the mic, but pre-development dollars are something completely different than equity, upfront equity. And, you know, yes, I'm familiar with Chicago Community Loan Fund's pre-development dollars. I think they probably have turned me down for those dollars, which is fine, you know, but I would say, and I'll say this and I'll stop talking, to understand the development process and to know the leverage points and to have the opportunities that match what's missing now. It's not mysterious. And anyone who's interested, I mean, we started a series, how to develop, you know, a property in Chicago a year ago, and then COVID hit. So we'll be doing more of those, but I just would like to get the best knowledge from the city. And if this is it, this is it.
Yeah, I think that Patrick is putting a couple things in the chat. I hear you on the distinction of the types of dollars that you're looking for and that people need. And I think, you know, it could be that folks in planning who've been working on the commercial side of this more have other thoughts. I would say we've mainly been working with groups like SEMD and others that I'm sure Quandra knows through her work at Sunshine that have been working to build out this space for Black and Brown developers to make it more robust. I do want to answer a question that Alex put in the chat, which was, how is this different than the city's commitment to land in Pilsen? And my answer to that would be it's absolutely not different. It's actually the exact same thing, which is that we have said if we're in that case successful in finishing the acquisition of that land, that we would ensure that or that our goal is that it is developed as affordable housing. It has to go through a competitive process. We don't pre-promise that any one particular proposal would be funded, but we are saying that our goal is for this land to be developed affordably. That's the exact same thing that we have said in Woodlawn. The land that we own would be developed affordably. So it's not different. It's the exact same thing.
Sorry, I just want to jump in because I want to direct the response. But those lots are pre-designated, which is exactly what we're asking you to do in this case.
Yeah, in this case, in Woodlawn, they are as well, because it's lots that we own, which is the same thing there, is that there be affordability. But
the ambiguity sends a signal. I think to me, the ambiguity
that I'm hearing is, can we say which lots have this deeper level of affordability? And the question that I bring to the broader group is, if you are suggesting that some lots have deeper affordability and some do not, there could be an adverse response to that, which is that you direct development to the lots that don't have that. Whereas right now, what we are doing is that as developments come in, we are directing them through this process no matter what. That's what we did at Park Station without it being pre-designated. So it's a sincere question to the entire group. What do people think about the potential ramifications of doing that? And I would like to hear from everyone in the group.
Would you mind repeating your thought, Commissioner, please?
Sure. So any land that is city-owned in Woodlawn, we have said has affordability restrictions. The question that that the group, some members of the working group brought forward was, but can we, within the city-owned land, can we pre-identify which of those lots have this deeper level of affordability? And so what I'm asking of the group is, if you pre-identify, because all of them have an affordability restriction, right? But if you pre-identify which ones have a deeper level of affordability restriction, one of the ramifications of that could be that the development community could say, oh, well, this lot, if I go to this lot that doesn't have that, I've got a certain level of affordability I need to meet, but not that deeper level. And so maybe I'll go there first. And that's a outcome that I don't know if people are comfortable with. And that's what I want to ask about, because the way that we're handling it now is that any development that comes in, we, as we did with Park Station, we say, hey, this is a goal that we want to meet on these denser developable lots. And if you pre-select some that meet that and some that do not, you lose the ability to do that. And I want to talk that through with the group about your thoughts on that as a ramification. Is that something that people are comfortable with?
That's kind of a yes and no situation. I understand what you're saying, but I've got to put this out here. You already have 10,000 people who need housing. We're only proposing that at least we get 1,000 people housed under these ordinances, and waiting around to have these, several years, and we're already gone several years since we've been in this process. It seems it's counterproductive. If you really, truly want to get people housed. We asked about the 52 lots. We identified the 63rd Street corridor because those lots are the lots that have the denser, qualify for denser population, and as well as multi-use. And I think multi-use is great. I think that's wonderful. But I also see there's a huge need to get this on the road. And if we have to go to banks and different processes, then these should be mapped out to the different organizations or whatever that we have to do to get this done. And I'm almost ready to say by any means necessary, okay? Because this is a strong thing that we've been talking about, and already 2 years have gone by since we won the ability to actually get the lots allotted to us.
So thank you. I think that was Ms. Payne.
It was.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Payne. You raised something that I do want to make an important distinction. When you say we need to identify them now because we need to house people now, identifying them is not the same as funding them. And we don't, that was a discussion that we very much had. It is not the same thing because, again, we don't have the resources to fund 52 lots worth of affordable housing in Woodlawn alone.
I get that what you're saying. I do get that part of it. And the lots that are closest to the Obama Center, we should say, hey, these 2, 3, 3, whatever they are, we're going to go after these to get these places built. And I know the people who are going to want to build are going to be willing to put the money in them because they are closest to the Obama Center. Okay.
And it would be a win for the Obama Center to be able to say, for Woodlawn to be able to say that the folks that are living closest to the Obama Center are folks that represent the population as it exists, that being like the medium income being less than 30% or $30,000. In addition to that, there was a referendum done that where 80% of Woodlawn actually voted and agreed that they wanted to see all city lots have 30% affordable housing. So I don't see why there then is an issue for us to ensure that, since we didn't get all of those lots, since this ordinance only guaranteed 1/4 of those lots, that we then secure the lots that will give us the most affordable housing, because this is a huge need that we have recognized, and that is why this ordinance was then passed.
So what I'm seeing some, okay, so in the chat, I'm hearing, I disagree with pre-identification and pre-selection. That idea needs more thought and brought to the community as a whole. Janora's saying, I agree. Is there a group that wants those lots? I keep hearing the term we and ours. So
I mean,
Say it again.
when I say we, I mean the people of Woodlawn. I'm not, we as the people that live here now, not those who are trying to move here. I'm talking about we as the residents of Woodlawn.
So what I think is important to note, and this was a topic that came up a lot in the working group meetings leading up to the ordinance itself, is that there are multiple members of the working group who are part of Woodlawn, and there's no one monolithic view within the community of what needs to happen here. So within the working group, to answer your question directly, as I understand it, it's STOP and the CBA coalition who is asking for the pre-identification. And so the conversation that we're having is with the working group as a whole about that question. And
the CPA coalition does do outreach with the entire community as well. I just want to note that.
Right, it's not just stuff.
And we've been doing that for over 6 years now.
I am not trying to speak for you, Savannah. I'm just trying to answer her question.
Are we going to speak with hands raised, or what's the process now? I'm just curious.
It looks like Alderwoman Taylor would like to speak.
So I've, in this space, I'm listening and I'm hearing all parts of the community talk, which is something that I'm steadfast on, that we move with the community. But let's not act like we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the coalition. So let's start there, because what we not gonna do is act like that we didn't make it an issue, because displacement is happening. And to Commissioner Navarro, Patrick, and Aaron's point, we've all talked about this. Like, this was not gonna be easy. This was before you all got in the office, but we've lived this before. It happened in Bronzeville, and I don't want us to pretend like it didn't happen. But I also don't want to pretend that we ain't been working on this since 2019 to get an ordinance we all could agree upon, and we backpedal about what we said we were and what not gonna do. Now, I sat in a bunch of those meetings and I heard the conversation around picking those lots. I live in Woodlawn too, Ms. Liz and Janora, and I agree with you all. We should have a survey to the community. But if you all said that this is what you're gonna do, you all should keep your word. And what I'm dealing with on a consistent basis is people being displaced while we fighting and arguing, and I don't want us to do that. Let's not act like a large percentage of the people who develop in our community actually live here, because they don't. And when it came to Park Station got that much affordability, because they wasn't gonna get no tip dollars if they wasn't gonna move that way. Let's be clear about why they did what they did. And so I have those community development meetings, but everything that is developed in Woodlawn does not come to me. So those $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 homes that's being built, they never come to my office. Remember, unless they want a zoning change, unless they want TIF dollars, or unless it's city owned, they really don't come to me, even when it comes to the county bank. And so there is not a lot that I get to decide. Ultimately, the Department of Planning and Housing, to its credit, gets to decide, which is why all this development is happening in the community. And I'm getting calls every day about why I didn't know. Well, I didn't know either. And so let's not act like that's the Alderman's decision, because it is not. What I feel like is fair is us talking to the housing group, yes. But what I heard mostly from folks that were asked to come to the table is they wanted to make sure that middle-class folks got protection when it came to housing, and that we were able to make opportunity for people who got displaced, which is why there's such this big conversation about making sure that the lots have this density on it. I've seen places where they've done a third, and a third. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But what I expect from the city is to be transparent and honest. And if y'all not gonna do the 52 lots, you all should have said that. That was not a comment. That's not anything I've ever heard. Actually, I heard I'm sorry, I'm trying to read the comments and listen to see what was here on the thing at the same time and kind of answer while I'm talking. I want us to be transparent, and I always, Aaron, I told you that before you got here. Commissioner and Patrick, y'all know who I am. And so this ain't about who I'm siding with. This is about protecting the community who currently lives here and how we make an opportunity for them to come back. Because we have not even worked out the plan about the right of first refusal. We haven't worked out that, or the right for people to return. And on a consistent basis, people are being displaced. And so, Commissioner Navarro, what you all are gonna do. But my expectation is for us to be honest about that and not act like that there has not been this. And I'll say this, Commissioner, you've inherited the homeowners against the renters thing. Because that happens in Woodlawn, and that's how it's always been. I'm quickly told I'm a renter and I have no stake, but I've been here 13 years. So I got a stake here. I'm just choosing not to have home ownership because it ain't cheap or what comes with it. But we're supposed to be making opportunities for everybody that lives here. And depending on the development is, and Janora and Quandra are both on the community development team. When it comes to us, that's what we're talking about. Yeah, you might have apartments that's $1,000, $1,200. How many of them are actually affordable to the people that are here? And so that's what I think you're hearing. And so the conversation about lots, maybe that's something that y'all want to put out a survey for. We want to have a conversation with the broader community, but that's not what you all said in it when we were doing the Woodlawn Housing Ordinance. That's not what was told. That was not part of the conversation. You all said that you were going to do it. And so that's why every question on here is that. And putting it on my office does not make it better, because I don't have a lot of, I have no say so over who purchasing the lots, what's promised to them, anything of that. Unless they're trying to get tip dollars or they're trying to get a zoning change, I never even know about the project. And so there are developers who will come to me and say, hey, I'm doing this project in your ward. That does happen. I won't say that it won't, but how we're figuring out and work out, it has to be a balance. It has to be, and I don't know how we do that, Commissioner, because we haven't met in a couple of months. I vaguely remember the last couple of meetings. I need to go back. So Aaron, if you can send me the link. And that's another thing. Everybody needs to go back and look at those meetings. They were recorded for a reason, because we had a bunch of good conversations, a bunch of good ideas that we probably need to go back to and revisit. And that all of that'll kick back in January. I'm actually working with the commissioner on doing something different in Parkway. And so we're thinking about housing. I'll give you all that credit, but we also have to be able to listen to all stakeholders, and too often that don't happen. And I'm not telling you all anything that I ain't seen and that I'm steadily not seeing, but I want us to be people of our word. And I want us to be honest. And I've always said that to you, Commissioner. If it's something y'all just ain't gonna do, tell them you ain't gonna do it. That's just what it is. I didn't go to all of those meetings, but I'm gonna go back and look and see what was said. And if it's a decision that the 52 lots you all said, and you want to say, okay, we'll do the 52 lots, but we need to have more input about what 52 lots is, that's fine. But let's be honest with the community as a whole, because this is how we're here. Because the city has not been transparent. They have not been honest. And I can't say that about you, Commissioner. I will give you that credit. When I talk to Aaron, when I talk to Patrick, when I need to get something, I get what I need. And so I have not, like I said, I missed the last couple of meetings because I'm working, but you all have been transparent. Don't change. Be that. And so I'm gonna look in the chat because I saw something that said, I think it's only fair the community as a whole should be informed. Yes, Miss Liz. So Miss Liz, we sent out newsletters. I've asked the commissioner to have housing meetings. They'll do another housing meeting. I want to say in April or March, where it's just them. And we get to ask all the questions because development and housing is something that I'm learning as well. So I don't know all the nuts and bolts, and I won't sit here and pretend like I don't, which is why I'm listening. But I've asked them before, they did it before, we're gonna do it again. Come back to the table and have some honest conversation about what housing. But the thing we also can't miss is property taxes. We and assessments. All of that stuff is important. And so I'm gonna stop there. I'm listening, I'm in the background, but at the end of the day, I just want us to be transparent and honest with each other. That's how we move forward.
Thank you, Alderwoman. I want to say a couple things in response to that, and then I know we're out of time. One thing I just want to clarify.
Well, I got my hand up too, Commissioner. Don't forget me.
What I want to clarify for everyone is that the reservation of 52 lots at the affordability levels that we've said is written into the ordinance. There's no, we said we were going to do that and we're not, and that's not reserved or that's not there. It is codified in the ordinance. So I want to make very clear, no one is saying that. The request to reserve which lots are specifically tied to that is a different request that is not in the ordinance. So it's not that someone said we would, put that in the ordinance and now we're saying we don't want to do it. It's not in the ordinance. If people want to do that, what I want to make really clear is that that's a decision that we can make. It's not the same thing as guaranteeing any funding for those lots. And that is something, because I heard this from folks tonight of we have to do this because it has to happen right now. That's not what that does. To reserve them does not make them create housing on them right now. And so I want to make sure that if that's the decision that people want to make, that one, it's made by the whole working group or broader than that. And that the implications of that are clear for people so that it isn't the case that it says the city promised this level of affordability on this lots and it hasn't happened. If we designate which lots it happens on, that's not the same thing as us saying we can fund them all, because we cannot. And I do want to make sure, to your point, Alderwoman, that we're saying what we can and cannot do. So we can do it if that's what the whole group, the whole working group decides they want, or the whole community, if we take it broader than that, decides that they want to do. That's not the same thing as creating housing there in a short-term time period, because that's not something that I have the ability to do.
Can I speak?
I'm going to turn it over to Aaron as far as the rest of the meeting, and in terms of,
I get it, but I'm just going to jump in real quick. I think what is disturbing about some of the comments that I'm hearing from the representatives from the city is, one, there's somewhere in what you're saying, like almost like, I want to tell you all to choose this, be careful. We just actually asked you a question. You're not going to answer directly. I get it. And then there's also some things in there that are being mixed in that we're not saying. Nobody's saying, I don't think, that we're expecting once you identify a lot of them in guaranteed funding. Let's stop mixing apples with oranges. Answer the specific question about what we're asking. And that's not going to happen tonight. I hear that. But this mayor has a credibility issue already. And we know how to make this issue more of a credibility issue, as far as if this thing drags on, drags out, or it turns into something else that's morphed by other interest groups. So what I'm saying here clearly is that you got to hear, this is not being dealt with in any manner that is showing expediency to deliver. It's been 2 years, it's continuing to go on. But here tonight, some of the responses have been just like couched in other language other than just saying yes, no, or we don't know. and talking to people versus saying that tactic about, well, this may not mean that it can be guaranteed funding. And we know the city doesn't have all the funding. What is that? Where does that come from? Who said that? But I know it's going to be disagreement on if that's really what you were saying. But it's no clarity from your answers. Your answers are beating around the bush, and you really just like almost just filibuster to get to no answers that won't directly answer this question. I think the audience said it well. Say what you're going to do, say what you're not going to do, putting it on her office, putting it on the working group on. It's like all these roundabout answers. The working group answer, I can kind of hear that. But this is still the problem. You wouldn't answer because people put it out there from the city. It wasn't answered. Is that what you all are saying? We're not identifying them anymore. That was put out there during the call earlier. I don't know if we all were in the same call.
Okay, well, we're out of time. I think that you know, I can follow up with Alderwoman Taylor's office just to discuss, you know, discuss some things that we can move forward with. I think we will, you know, take in the feedback and thoughts that we have and just discuss further, you know, what can happen in the future. What I want to remind people of is that we do have the long-term homeowner improvement grant that's being shared right now for homeowners who've lived in the neighborhood for at least 5 years. Those applications open in January, on January 3rd. Information about that is on our website, on the Woodlawn website that I put in the chat. So please share that information with your neighbors, with your homeowners in your community, so that can start taking opportunities of that. Also on that website, it has the full list of all the programs that also benefits homeowners and renters that are provided by the Woodlawn Housing Preservation Ordinance, and financing tools such as the Woodlawn Loan Fund to help create or preserve more units. And so please share that information with developers in the community, people who are interested in maintaining and preserving housing in the community. And that website also has a connection to our resident retention packet, which is a more comprehensive list of all of our DOH programs, not just the ones for Woodlawn, that homeowners and renters can access now. As another reminder, for the next few days, the emergency rental assistance is open. If renters are struggling making their rent, please go to chicago.gov/rent help for more information on the emergency rental assistance program. And our next regularly scheduled meeting is February 2022. And that's following the cadence of meetings that are laid out in the ordinance of every 6 months. Our last regularly scheduled meeting was August. So again, our next one will be then. I appreciate you all taking the time out of your evening to share your concerns, your thoughts, and your feedback for this. Again, we'll follow up with the Alderwoman's office and more on this issue. But thank you all, and feel free to email me at aaron.johnson@cityofchicago.org for more thoughts and feedback. Again, I'll send out the slides to you all and the posted recording, or you can go on the Woodlawn's website. It also has an email address, which will get to me for your thoughts and feedback from the working group. And again, we would like the full working group feedback on this issue. So please send your information to either my email or that email on the website, which will get to me. I appreciate you all. I hope you have a safe and joyous holiday time coming up and a prosperous new year as we go into the new year. Thank you all and have a good night.